The following is a conversation with Lenore Skenazy. Lenore is an American speaker, blogger, syndicated columnist, author, and reality show host known for her activism in favor of free-range parenting. In 2008, she wrote a controversial column on her decision to let her then 9-year-old son take the New York City subway home alone, which became a national story and prompted massive media attention and dubbing as America's Worst Mom. In response, Lenore wrote the book, Free Range Kids, and runs a blog of the same name. She is the president of Let Grow, a nonprofit whose mission is to give kids back the developmentally crucial vitamin our culture accidentally removed from childhood, independence. She was featured in the documentary Chasing Childhood, released in 2020, which has received 13 film festival awards. Lenore is a 1981 graduate of Yale University and received her master's degree from Columbia in 1983. I remember my personal childhood like it was yesterday, playing in the woods, wandering for hours with friends, riding dirt bikes, using the full extent of my imagination, building tree forts, wrestling with friends, playing in creek beds, fishing, and building sledding jumps designed for maximal error and spectacular wipeouts. Today, on the other hand, we see almost none of this. Children are bubble wrapped, protected from all harm, and never allowed to truly connect with their inner animal. But on the flip side, children are pushed harder than ever for perfect grades and constant involvement in structured events, leading to the highest rates of depression, anxiety, and stress we have ever seen. It's for these reasons I am excited to chat with Lenore today. You are listening to the Co-Movement Gym podcast, where we inspire people to move and live courageously. If you are enjoying this content, please support our sponsors in the description. I thank each and every one of you for being on this journey with us. Now, please enjoy the show. Folks, listen up. I want to take a brief moment and thank our podcast show sponsors, Lombardi Chiropractic, Native Path Supplements, and Redmond Life. Lombardi Chiropractic has been my personal chiropractor for 10 years and has kept my body strong and healthy. Native Path Supplements are used by numerous co-movement clients and our coaching team here at the facility. I highly recommend that you try their chocolate collagen peptides. I was made aware of Redmond Life by one of our trainers here at the facility. He recommended I try Relight Electrolyte Powder. This supplement has dramatically improved my afternoon energy levels and overall hydration. I'd like to thank these three companies for providing outstanding service and products that make our society healthier and more resilient. Mention the Co-Movement Gym podcast when you call Lombardi Chiropractic, and not only will they treat you like family, they will provide a nice, enticing discount to all listeners. And use code COMO15, that's C-O-M-O 15, at checkout when shopping at nativepath.com or redmond.life and receive 15% off all your orders. Your support to our show sponsors assists in us paying for expenses and continuing to provide content we hope you all enjoy. Lenore, welcome to the Co-Movement Gym podcast. How you doing today?
I'm co-moving. How are you?
Very good, very good. I want to start off with, I read an article a few weeks ago with Dr. Peter Gray. Are you familiar with him from
Am I
Boston College?
familiar? He's one of the co-founders of Let Grow with me. Yeah.
Yes. And he had a quote here I want to start this off with, and
hmm
we can sort of take it from here. It said that his college counseling office has seen a doubling in the rate of emergency calls in the last 5 years, mainly from problems kids used to solve on their own, like being called a bad name by a roommate or finding a mouse in the room.
Yeah.
Students are prepared academically, but they're not prepared to deal with day-to-day life, which comes from a lack of opportunity to deal with ordinary problems. And so let's
Yep.
start there. I remember my childhood. I grew up playing in the woods, building forts, jumps, the whole deal, and
uh-huh.
like wrestling with friends, playing ice hockey. And now we're living in a world where overprotective parents are over structuring their kids' lives, and it's leading to a lot of issues. So, how did we get in this position?
Oh, yeah, I've been thinking about that for a long time too. First of all, I don't blame parents. I don't say, oh, those parents are such overprotective ninnies, or they're just they're sapping their children's lives of freedom and fun, because it's a culture that is almost forcing helicoptering upon parents, whether they believe in it or not. I mean, if you want to have your kid have anything to do after school, it often requires putting them in some kind of supervised, structured activity, because there's no kids just going to the woods to
Mhm,
play. Or if they're a couple, everybody else is either home on their computers because parents think it's safer than being outside because they've been told to be afraid. Or they're in, a travel league or something that the parents have to drive them to, and it's only 45 minutes, so they might as well stay and watch it. And so then the parents have sort of something to do and are
mhm,
almost expected to stick around so that they're not burdening the other parents with your kid being there. So the thing that's changed is that we sort of see kids as like these bonsai trees or something that we have to take places and water and watch all the time. And so a bonsai tree is stunted. It's beautiful and it's perfect in some ways. It's perfect bonsai tree, but it's not a giant oak, or I'm looking out my window, a scraggly, sort of beat up fir tree. And so what's happened is that in the past generation or two, the idea that kids can do anything safely or successfully on their own has evaporated. And I can whip us through the reasons, but the end result is that even if you think that your kid could be fine outside, waiting at the bus stop, walking to school, playing in the woods, chances are there's some social force that's working against that. What happened is that in the late 70s and early 80s, there were a couple of very high profile kidnappings that brought the idea of stranger danger to the fore, even though, there's never been a time when kids are absolutely perfectly safe, but they weren't suddenly less safe in the late 70s or early 80s. But we saw the kids on the milk cartons.
mhm,
Remember those kids? Have you seen
mhm.
me? I'm missing, save me. And there was never an asterisk that said, by the way, I ran away, or by the way, I was taken by my mom in a custody dispute with my ex, with her ex-husband, my dad. And so it started feeling like anytime kids left the house, they were going to be kidnapped. And once that becomes a sort of belief, and I think the ground was softened, or the jar was partially opened by our fear of kids being poisoned on Halloween, which was a fear
Mhm.
that sort of grew in the 60s and 70s that also had no basis in reality. The number of children killed by a poison, somebody poisoning them on Halloween, is zero. So people don't know that, so I just thought I'd throw that in. Anyway, so once you get this idea that stranger danger is something that everybody should be watching out for, it starts to seem ill advised and even immoral to let your kids have unsupervised time outside. What, don't you care? Don't you love them? I once gave a talk at a school, and one of the parents came up to me afterwards, and he was kind of shaken up because he talked to somebody else on the way in and was saying, oh, I'm excited about this. And I'm sort of known for letting my 9-year-old ride the subway alone. I wrote a column about that way long ago, 15 years ago. And that was sort of an inciting incident. But anyway, so this guy had been talking to a fellow parent on the way in saying, I'm excited to do this. So far, all we do is we let our kid in our doorman building in New York City take the elevator up by herself from the lobby to our apartment building. And the other parent said, you let your child ride the elevator by herself? And he's
Wow.
like, well, it's a doorman building and we live there. And yes, I do. And the kid was, I don't know, 8, 9, or 10.
Mm.
And the other parent said, well, I guess I just love my child more than you do.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
nice. Really nice. So that's like a strange moment. So
Mhm,
once you get this um sort of new fear out of the box that anytime your child is unsupervised, they are going to be kidnapped. And at that point, there were also these wrong statistics being bandied about that 50,000 children a year were being kidnapped by strangers. Would have actually meant one kid out of every kindergarten class just disappeared and you never saw them again. And the number, thank God, is much lower. It'd be great if it was zero, but it's around 100.
mhm,
And And most, a great majority of those kids are in trouble already, just in horrible family situations where sometimes the parents don't even notice the kids are gone. So the idea that walking to the bus stop is like walking through a firing squad took hold, but it absolutely had no basis in reality.
Mhm.
And the second thing that changed us is living in such a litigious culture. You just start thinking like a lawyer. Is that okay? Is that safe? And I was talking to my sister last night about this. She said, think about a playground, even. I mean, you're into movement, right? The
Mhm.
first things to go were the teeter totters, right? The
Yep.
seesaws, because, and what is a seesaw if not negotiation writ large?
Mhm.
Buster Brown, will you give me let me down? Like, no, I won't let you down. Please let me down. And I like weigh about 2 ounces. And so I was always begging people to please let me down. And it was scary. I can't say I even miss them. I actually didn't. Why was I always on a teeter totter? I hated them, but there I was. So that requires another kid, and it requires constant recalibration, literally, of the angle that you're on, and being nice to the person or not nice. And then if they're really a jerk, you'll never play with them again. And so off went the teeter totters, and then away went the merry-go-rounds. Oh, they're so fast, and it's like, yeah, that's the point. And they're exciting, and it requires somebody to take on the job of making the merry-go-round go fast, and other kids to shriek with delight, and those disappeared. And now we have swings, and swings are pretty solo, and a lot of plastic, and a lot of things that are about 7 inches off the ground. Wow, I'm gonna
Mhm.
jump down from, I could just walk
Yep.
down, actually I could crawl down from here. So I think part of that is the litigious culture, and I've heard from school districts that you know have been forced to change their playgrounds because of
Mhm.
lawsuits. Third reason that we're so much more afraid about everyday life than our parents or grandparents were was that you live in an expert culture, and experts are always, you can't hang out your shingle, even though I have, saying everything's fine, don't worry, it's going to be okay, don't make such a big deal, because that doesn't get a lot of traction. The Parents Magazine actually has sort of gone out of business. It's just online now, but their
Mhm.
headlines are the hidden dangers in your home, the horrors in your cabinet, 17 things never to say to your kid. Here's the 28 rituals you have to do before bedtime for your kid to feel safe, secure, happy, and loved. And uh, experts are sort of good at making you feel like whatever you figured out on your own is not optimal, and optimal is the
Mhm.
only good way to go. And so you start feeling like I better listen to these experts, and the experts are always giving you more to do, except me, I'd say. So expert culture, and then the fourth reason I think we're more afraid is that the marketplace has figured out, people sometimes say to me, the reason we're so worried is because we have small families. When people had 10 kids and a couple of them died, it didn't matter as much. And I'm like, I don't think that's exactly it. It's like, oh, which one dies? 7. Okay, well, dig a hole. I don't think it was that, but they're right to sort of grope towards the idea that there's a new dynamic when families are smaller. And I think the new dynamic is money and time. Because if you have 10 kids and one income versus two
Mhm.
kids and two incomes, there's a
Yep.
lot more money to be spent per child. And into that void, or into that pile of cash, runs the marketplace to tell you, of course, you need. I just went to a baby shower for a relative. And wow, I mean, you could have filled up a store with the things, the wipe warmer and the baby. But there was actually an amazing thing. It seemed pretty cool, actually. There was how you have like those espresso machines that are just, you press a button, and
Yeah.
out comes delicious espresso, which I wish I had. This was that you put in the formula and you press a button, and out comes a bottle filled with exactly correct temperature, sterilized, correctly measured formula. So it's like a barista for a bottle. So that wouldn't have been happening on the farm. Let's just put it that way. So when you have fewer kids and two incomes, the marketplace starts coming up with must-haves that are absolutely not must-haves. You could have them, you could easily live without them, but we're going to sell them to you anyway, and people buy them. Obviously, if somebody's buying an espresso maker for a baby's bottle, somebody's buying something there that is not absolutely required for a child's sustenance.
Yeah, it's in all of this, again, like I remember when I was a kid, there was, yes, like we had structure, we had, practices and whatnot, but we also had a ton of free time.
Hmm.
Okay. Whether it was playing in the woods or whatnot, but I felt like we had a lot of like family time. We had family
Hmm.
dinners. We did
Hmm.
a lot
Yeah,
of things
totally. Yeah.
together. And I played sports. I was in after school activities, but now, and I see this in adults, at the gym also, is that
Hmm.
their schedules, they're not only are they working, 40 to 60 hours a week, they're also going at night, 5 to 7 nights a week constantly. And I think we're
Hmm.
translating that also into our kids,
Hmm.
not letting
Hmm.
Johnny and Susie just relax and just be kids and use their imagination. We need to keep them going and going. And so, what kind of impact has this had on depression and
Yeah.
anxiety rates? I know in your film, Chasing Childhood, there was some statistics in there. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I can't speak to the exact statistics, but I can tell you that the graph of free time and child mobility, which is like the ability to walk like 1 block or 2 blocks or 3 blocks, that's all been going down. And anxiety and depression have been going up literally since the 50s. And there's
Mm,
a article that was either last month or maybe now it's the month before in the Journal of Pediatrics by Peter Gray and a couple of other sort of august names in child development. Talking about correlation is not causation. Just because something is going up and something is going down doesn't mean that one is causing the other, but they make the case pretty cogently that it's not coincidence, and
mhm,
that the key there is something called the internal locus of control. Took me a long time to get that phrase down. But what the internal locus of control is when you feel like you can handle things. If something happens, you can take charge. If something, if you want something to occur, you can make it happen. This It's an internal locus center of control. You are controlling the world, and the opposite is an external locus of control, where you feel like passive and sort of a victim because somebody else is deciding your life for you. For instance, prisoners have very little internal locus of control because where they live and what they eat and when they do things and what they do are all decided by someone else. Well, same with a lot of childhood. And I'm not
mhm,
saying that parents are prison guards, but I am saying once again that this culture has sort of made us parents into um, chauffeurs and spectators and schedulers and suggesters of all of kids' free time. And the reason we end up doing this is because of the twin fears that I think have been sort of shoved down our throats. One is that our kids will be, when they walk out the door, that the milk carton kid, they'll be kidnapped, raped, and eaten. And the other fear is that they won't get into Harvard. And either way, it's a complete disaster because either way, their lives are ruined. And so once you take that belief and internalize it, you start thinking that you must be with your kids all the time. And the reason I wait, I have to cough. The reason I don't blame parents for quote unquote helicoptering is not just that this has become the norm, but when you're with your kids and when I'm with my kids, it is impossible not to intervene. Right? I see them looking at their phone while they're crossing the street. I want to kill them, which is ironic because I'm worried about them getting killed. Right? But it drives me nuts. And I see them and they're not, eating enough vegetables or using the right fork. I don't care about their forks. But the point is, whenever you're with your kid, when they're small and they're not sharing, come on, Joshy, let him have the shovel. Or they're upset and it's like, okay, so Josh, your sister gets to take her turn first, but then you get 2 turns because you're second, and then she gets 2.5 turns because it's not quite as bad as 3 turns. When you're with them, you're older, you have some solutions, and you don't like seeing them frustrated or sad or disappointed. And inevitably, I mean, I'm just basing this on me, inevitably you jump in. So, really, the only way to turn helicopter parenting culture around is to renormalize unsupervised time and even tell parents that it's good for kids because right now they're only seeing it through the lens of what could go wrong. But when you talk about the anxiety and the depression, the loneliness and the passivity that are sort of seizing our kids now, if parents could recognize that, parents in schools could recognize that that comes from having had their childhood turned into a big project for adults, maybe we would figure out to give them back some time in the woods. And you mentioned relaxing. You said, you had time to relax. And it's like, I relax if I have free time, but I think kids have fun if they have free
Yes.
time. And so it's not just like either they're active or they're relaxing because they don't have a scheduled activity. um, in childhood is when kids find their quirky interests, the odd things that
Mhm.
they like to do with their free time. I saw a woman yesterday wearing a cool coat that I very much envied because it had four-leaf clovers on it. I spent my whole childhood looking for four-leaf clovers. Did it get me anywhere? Maybe it made me lucky. You never can't say it didn't. But it was something that I did that I just loved. And given free time, I would do that. And it was what can I say? Had somebody said, Lenore, that's a stupid waste of time. Why don't you learn the oboe? We're going to take those 5 hours a week that you spend poring over clovers and make sure that you learn something that you can put on your college resume. I don't think that would have served me any better than I think it would have served me worse, and that
And
I
you-
wouldn't have had my time to figure out what I love to do. And then I did a lot of art and poetry and all that other stuff too, not for a class.
Yeah, yeah, I see the same thing. Like we have a 9-year-old, and when he has a play date come over, and we don't give them an agenda. They just go
Hmm.
outside. We have 2 nice country acres. There's a
Oh,
garden,
wow.
a wood chip
Mhm.
pile. Like they just play. And it's really cool to see like the games they make up, imagination, creativity. They build like, little rock, piles, and they're all just like talking and integrating. And I don't know, it's just, I love seeing that. That was just yesterday. It was pouring rain here. We have a little Jack Russell puppy, and
Oh,
the
wow.
puppy,
Oh,
yeah, the
no.
puppy, our 9-year-old and his friend were outside for an hour and a half in the rain, just having a blast. And I don't know, I just, hopefully this message, the conversation we're having and the work you're doing is going to get to more people, because it's truly awesome. And then he comes in, he's happy, and we have a good healthy dinner, and we
I was
we
gonna
give
say
the
exhausted and hungry, right? What more do you
yes.
want, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I know we've also seen, and I'm sure you've seen this too on your side, but like the physical consequences
Mm,
of overprotecting our children and keeping them indoors. That was in the film. But
mhm.
here, we work with kids. I've worked with a lot of schools, over 75 schools in the last 10 years, with,
Wow.
the health of their students, from a
What do you
PE and
do?
health curriculum. We wrote a
What?
curriculum called Fit Kids, Fit Future,
Mm,
and it was a physical assessment followed by a physical curriculum with individual workouts, strengthening, stability, and then we combine that with a health curriculum with having kids find their hidden geniuses, their values, how to build a meal plate with nutrition. And what we saw over the last 10 years is like middle schoolers, 71% can't do a push-up. 81,
wow.
yeah,
Wow. Really?
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
writing that down. 71% of middle schoolers can't do a
You can't
push-up.
do a
Wow.
real push-up. And
Wow.
so 81% can't do a chin up, one chin
Wow.
up,
I could
one chin
never
over
do
the
one.
bar.
I was at 81%.
Over half cannot perform normal air squats anymore. Just squat down and stand up.
What do you mean?
Just a
They
squat,
can't
a
squat down and
normal.
stand up?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
What do
They
they do?
need
They get down and
assistance.
never get up again?
They
They
hold they
press that
hold their
like little sensor. I've squatted and I can't get up. Right?
Yeah, they hold their knees, or they can only go down halfway. They
Oh
lean
my God.
dramatically to one side. Yeah. 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 It's all the movements that, we used to do playing and develop
Right.
structurally, that is really, really hard for them. And so, it's the natural environment of developing physically is so important. Yeah.
What's really interesting about that is that, a lot of kids are in after school activities and sports, but you're saying that their natural abilities, like almost agility and springiness of childhood, has atrophied because it hasn't been used. I mean,
Yes.
a lot of times with after school sports these days, parents want their kids to get really good at something. And so first of all, rather than just running around in the woods with the Jack Russell Terrier, they're in an activity, and sometimes they're in that same activity month after month after month after month after month, because how are
Yep.
they going to get good at baseball when some of the kids are doing it 11 months a year and you're only doing it 3 months a year? So
Hmm.
then, there's these, you know this better than I, that kids are coming in with the kind of injuries that used to plague actual professional athletes, like Tommy John injuries or whatever, because they've used the same muscles over and over again before they really had a chance to develop, and sort of at the cost of all the rest of them developing. There have been
Hmm.
studies that also show, or a study, um, two actually, that are interesting. One is that kids get a lot more exercise when they're just running around for fun than when they're in an after, an organized, adult organized sport. And another one was that kids were less able to do like the chin up and some of these other sort of things that require a little bit of endurance. And the problem wasn't just that the muscles weren't strong enough. The will to, to grit your way through the frustration and pain was
Hmm.
missing. And I'm not a person who goes around talking about trophy culture. Kids get trophies for everything. But I am a person who talks about when you're with your kids, you're an adult, and you see your kid stressing, straining, hurting, crying, you will step in. I will step in to stop it. I don't want to see them hurt. But when they're with their friends, like, can you climb that, thing? Can you jump over the bridge? Can you whatever? It's like that's when kids have to take the risk, the pain, and the frustration up a notch. And
Hmm.
that's when you get a little more used to discomfort. And when you were talking about Peter Gray at the beginning of the podcast and how he was worried that kids on campus um, were sort of freaked out when something was difficult or painful. And I would be too if there'd always been somebody there to say, hey, quit that, or let's go home now, or you look tired, or here's a snack. And so it's not surprising that they're going to the dean or the mental health services, or the dorm daddy, and saying, I'm uncomfortable, make this go away.
Hmm. Yeah. It makes complete sense. They haven't developed an anti-fragility, over time. They've been comforted so much to the point that they think being uncomfortable is not right.
Right. The way we talk about it is like there's a confusion which has been once again promoted by our culture, and I'll give you a Parents Magazine example in a second. That to feel uncomfortable is, it shouldn't happen to them, and so it's seen through the lens of safety. If I'm uncomfortable, I'm unsafe. There is
Mhm,
harm here. And sometimes are uncomfortable, and sometimes some roommates are jerks, and mice are not something you want in your dorm room, but they're not insurmountable difficulties.
mhm. Yeah, another side effect I've seen with this, just in working with kids and adults too, is when something is hard, whether it's physically or an academic project, or it's tough, it's challenging. The resiliency to keep pushing and pushing and pushing and like
Hmm.
striving and striving, right? Like you can
Hmm.
run 1 mile and then two and then three, and your goal's 10, but like at mile two, it starts to burn a little, like you just
I'd
quit.
say block two starts to burn a little, but okay. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is motivation. I mean, there's the external motivation. If you're in a class where they're making you do something, I would have less resilience than if I was doing something for fun.
Mhm,
The patience that's required to, make your art project look good. I mean, I know you're more physical, and I'm more like art and writing, but to make lyrics scan. I mean, everything takes nothing that's fun is that easy. And the joy comes from, pushing through the tough stuff and ending up with a result that you like, whether that's running further or more chin ups, or, lyrics that you like, or a picture that doesn't look like, why is the arm coming out of his head, sort of thing. And
mhm,
so there's a lot more a chance of developing that kind of stick to itiveness if you're doing something for an intrinsic reward, because you want to
mm,
make it good, because you're excited, because your friend said, can you do this? And it's like, let's try this together, as opposed to, okay, class, now we're all going to do 5 whatevers. So there's nothing more motivating than having some free time, being bored, and then figuring out something that's fun and then working on it. And when
Mhm.
everything is presented to you almost like a remember there used to be those paint by numbers. If
Yeah.
your whole childhood is paint by numbers, somebody else has already decided what the picture is and what the colors are, and here's the paints that go exactly with it. That's pretty boring, right? And so you have to trust kids with some unstructured and, I would say, unsupervised time, so they figure out who they are and what does intrinsically motivate them, because that will allow them to develop the focus, the joy, the frustration tolerance that come with working on a project that you love.
That's a great point. I think about like what I'm training for, whether it's a fitness endeavor or whatnot. It's something I want to do, right?
Right.
And it's
Right. Your
not
wife
like
didn't
I've
say,
got.
Josh, wake up. It's time to train. Right.
Yeah, that's a great point, Lenore. That's really funny. Yeah, because the clients and athletes we've seen excel in certain events, they've really wanted to do that specific event, right? I
Hmm.
wasn't telling them to do that. So yeah, I like that a lot. With school shootings, I want to get into this. There seems to be
Hmm.
more and more school shootings. And
Hmm.
um so why, like, parents are nervous,
Hmm.
whether their kids at school or walking on the sidewalk. It's in the media all the time now. What do you think the solution is to helping parents not be as nervous in terms of school
Hmm.
shootings? And then what do you think the solution is to decreasing school shootings? Two different answers, but I'm curious to see what you
I'm not
think.
I really don't know what to decrease school shootings. I wish that the media, I used to be a newspaper reporter for like 18 years.
Mhm.
So a tabloid in New York City. So I certainly know if it bleeds, it leads. And, and even if the newspapers and the television stations listen to me, there's still a million people out there, a trillion people out there blogging every day. But I'd say pay less attention. And I also don't have a solution for fear. Certainly fear of something that is out of a parent's control and out of the child's control, which is what we're talking about. Just like I don't have a solution for if an atom bomb dropped on us, or if there was drone warfare, or the AI robots come for us. What I do have a solution for is everyday fear of kids being out of our sight, because that's sort of what interests me. Kids are going to be going to school or not, but after school or before school or on weekends or in the summer is when they could have some free time, like your kid did yesterday in the rain with a dog, with the woods, and with a friend. How do you get parents to recognize, first of all, that that's healthy and great for your kid? Even more important, I would say, than another lesson of some sort. And then how do you make them feel brave enough to let them have that time without you watching them? And the only thing I've seen that rewires parents' brains to feel very excited about taking their eyes off their kids is pushing them to do it once. And that's why Let Grow, the organization that I run now, that I co founded with Peter Gray and also with Jonathan Haidt, who wrote The Coddling of the American Mind,
Yeah, I read
suggests
that.
that,
That's a great
yeah,
book.
it is a great book. It is great. Um, Now he's writing 2 more. He's so busy. And yet he's always giving lectures. He's everywhere. Um, so what we've discovered is that if you give everyone in a class or a school district the Let Grow project, and all of our materials are free. So I'm not pushing like, oh, just spend $10 or whatever, or $1,000.
Mhm.
It's free. The Let Grow project is a homework assignment that says, go home and do something new on your own without your parents. And it can be climb a tree, chop down a tree. You got all those wood chips. Or make a meal for your whole family. Go to the store for mom. Walk yourself to the bus stop. All these things are very simple, and they used to be considered normal everyday after school activities. So if you let your kid, or a couple kids together, go walk to the store, walk themselves to school, play outside in the afternoon at the park without you there, And then they come home because that's been their homework assignment. And then they come home and they say, oh, you won't believe it. It was so cool. I tried this weird nut that would fall from the tree and it was so disgusting. And then we gave it to a squirrel and the squirrel almost looked like he was going to bite me, but he didn't. They're so excited that they have been trusted with the real world and that you were the ones who trusted them, that you believe in them and that you're allowing them to believe in the world. That rewires a parent. And I used to think it rewired them because they were so certain that the kid would die between here and the park and home that they were relieved. But I've come to realize that it's something else. And it is that as much as we're wired to have children, why do you have children? So that they'll be here when you're gone, right? In a way that's, your genes are just going to get. So until you see your kid do something without you, all you know is that your kid is fine when they're with you. But when you see your kid do something without you, it's this joyous revelation that like your whole experiment, your whole life's work is working. Your kid is going to be okay, right? They can take care of themselves. Obviously, they're not ready to, start putting down a mortgage on a house. But the joy that I've seen in parents and the speed with which they go from you need me every second, you're always in danger, I have to be there, you can't handle that, here, let me, to look at my kid,
Mhm.
look at that, there's my Johnny. It's so fast that it must be something evolutionarily wired in
Mhm.
parents, and we've prevented parents from feeling it because we've told them to be with your kids every single second. And it's only when you're not with your kids, they do something on their own and they come home, that you start reveling in the fact they're a blossoming human being in the world. And so we really recommend that schools do the Let Grow project because it changes parents. Teachers love it because the kids start getting a little more mature. Kids love it because some of the things that they do outside the classroom are cool and they find they have a reason to talk about their outside world in the classroom. I learned how to make a tortilla. I taught my little sister how to ride a bike. I climbed the tree. And even if you're like horrible at math and science, you're just an English learner at this point. Finally, you have something that you can point to that you're successful at. And other kids go, one kid made a Quidditch broom for one of their Let Grow projects. Suddenly, all the kids were making Quidditch brooms because there's something else interesting in the world now, and it's just not another worksheet. So the Let Grow
Yeah.
project is a revelation, and I wouldn't be working on the same project myself for 15 years if I didn't see how extremely quickly it changes the game. And the other thing that we
Mhm.
recommend that schools do is stay open after school for mixed age, no devices, free play. There's a teacher in the
Yes.
corner, crouching with her EpiPen, but the kids are just running around with balls and chalk and jump ropes, and there's an old tire and an old typewriter and some cloth, and kids figure out how to have fun like your son did yesterday. Wood chips doesn't sound like a lot of fun to me, but if you're 9 years old and you got a friend and a puppy, it's everything. It's snow, it's projectiles, it's food. You can pretend to be feeding the dog, whatever it is. There's so much that kids do and figure out what they love when we're not telling them, here, honey, why don't you do this? Let me help you. I think you should do this. Do it again. Yay, you did it. Nobody needs all that. And it's very hard to make people recognize the value of nothing, the value of not intervening, not scheduling, not helping, not solving the arguments, not suggesting a game, not proposing the rules, just trusting them with some free time and some friends.
That is amazingly well said, Lenore. The methods in the Let Grow program, is that what the superintendent used in the film Chasing
Yes,
Childhood? Is that
yes.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that superintendent was amazing.
Yeah, everybody loves him.
And
He's messianic, right?
well, and the results, right? The results
Yeah.
prove, the methods are effective. And
The
there
results
was
are sorry, I'll jump in a minute. Finish your sentence.
yeah, no, it's just inspiring to see that the actual changes that what the actions and the steps that you're implementing, you watch someone else do that, and then the results that are shown were remarkable.
Yeah. So right now we have an experiment being run. We're sponsoring, helping sponsor research into whether these things are as phenomenal as I believe they are. And so we have a psychology professor at Long Island University. He's also a clinical psychologist, um, using the Let Grow project as therapy for children with a diagnosis of anxiety.
Hmm.
And he said so far that the results have been off the charts. And he's a clinical psychologist. He's like, this is New York City. He's a $600 an hour guy. And he said that this just giving kids the chance to be independent and do some things on their own that they want to do, not even focusing on the thing they're scared of. If they're scared of dogs, instead of in cognitive behavioral therapy, it's exposure. You show them a picture of a dog, you show them a dog across the street, you have them in the same room as a dog, you have them pet the dog. That's very, it's kind of miserable for the kid and for the therapist, because it's like you're showing them and making them do the thing they like the least. So if you say, you're scared of dogs, what would be fun to do? Oh, I've always wanted to take the train, or I've always wanted to walk to school. And you let them do that. That is turning out to dial down the anxiety faster than cognitive behavioral therapy. I mean,
Wow.
why am I doing this podcast? Why do I do all my podcasts and write the blog? It's because I think we're on the cusp of an actual breakthrough, to recognize, like, we've sort of driven kids crazy by taking away their independence and telling them that they are in danger, and that and somebody else needs to be with them and help them all the time. And by breaking back through that and giving them back the world and some confidence and some experiences and some ups and downs, um, that works and recalibrates a lot of kids to normalcy instead of the misery of anxiety and depression. That's a breakthrough. And so I would just say, if anybody's listening and they work at a school, to please go to letgrow.org, letgrow.org, and check out our school programs. And if you're a homeschooler, they work for homeschoolers. And if you're at home and you want to try giving your kids the Let Grow project, I'd say do it. But it's so much easier if everybody's doing it at the same time. You're not the crazy parent. There's a bunch of parents doing it, and then the parents compare notes and the kids compare notes. But even if you're the only one, you can do it on your own. There's a home version of the Let Grow project. But
Mhm.
this is what I'm on your podcast for, is to tell people that our kids don't have to be as depressed, anxious, and I would say, we're talking about it sort of unfit, physically,
Mhm.
mentally, for the world. And of course they aren't. It's like if you took all the vitamins out of their food, if you only fed them M&Ms every day, you'd go, wow, they seem a little listless. Well, if you only give them structured activities, and somebody else has taken out the arguing, the creativity, the exhilaration, the self-satisfaction, and you're wondering, gee, they seem a little listless, I'm not surprised.
Hmm. Do you see the tides turning? I know you do a lot of speaking, parents, schools, and whatnot. Do you see it with your audience, the tide turning, Lenore, with this, like the awareness around this, and more parents wanting the kids to be free and sort of go along with this whole narrative in this podcast? Like, do you see that?
I see parents wanting their kids to be happier
Hmm.
and less on their screens. And those two things dovetail with what we're suggesting. It's like, okay, make a sanctuary after school of the playground, and there's no screens, and the kids are talking to each other and figuring things out. And they're different ages. So there's all these different abilities, and there's a lot of variation, and you can find new friends in different grades. So, yes, I see a lot of openness to this. I find distressing that, because our programs are free, we don't have salespeople going to meetings and conferences saying, buy our curriculum, because there's nothing to buy. And so Michigan just spent $150 million on a social emotional curriculum for teachers. That's a lot of in-class exercises. And I'm agnostic about those, but I can tell you that there's one that works for sure and is fast and free. And that's these two Let Grow ideas: the play club after school or before school, and the project. So I see a lot of interest in children's mental health now. I think
Hmm.
people are recognizing that it's on thin ice. And I am just hoping that this simple solution that's sort of sitting there for the taking gets taken.
Yeah, we're gonna link to all of that, Lenore, with this show descriptions and all that. So we'll get this out for you. I have two more quick questions. I know we're gonna be close to the 45 minutes here.
Mhm.
What advice do you have for a 25-year-old couple that has a new baby on the way and they want their kid to grow up a free range kid?
Oh, first of all, how sweet. I'd say start finding other parents or parents to be who, share your interest in giving kids more freedom. But I also say, look, for those first couple of years, your kid's not going to be free range at all because it's a baby. It needs attention. I'd also say maybe look with a skeptical eye at some of the gadgets and apps that will be presented to you as absolutely crucial for your child's safety, that this only these will give you a peace of mind, because from what I've seen, nothing gives you more peace of mind than starting to trust your kid without your eyes on them all the time, and the apps sort of condition you to thinking that you have to be watching every breath, their temperature every second, every movement in the crib, every item in the crib. And remember that this is a culture that's dedicated to getting the money of worried parents out from their wallet and into someone else's wallet.
Mhm. Okay, advice for a 35-year-old couple that has the 10-year-old kid and they've been overprotective and overstructured for 10 years. If you could just give them one homework assignment, what would that be?
Oh, it would be the Let Grow Project. And to that 35-year-old couple, I have to say that the professor who's doing the study of the Let Grow Project has been working with a couple of 10-year-olds, who actually, two of the 10-year-olds were both had this. I'd heard about this once before and I thought, wow, that's weird. But now that I've heard of other kids, maybe it's not that weird. Kids who are afraid to go upstairs or downstairs in their own home without a parent.
Oh,
And yeah, and actually I'd heard of a 9-year-old too. It's the mother, a mother who came to one of my talks, and she had already heard about the Let Grow Project. And I saw her like with a furrowed brow in the audience, and she raised her hand, and I thought she was going to say, "What about kidnapping or something?" And she said, we started doing this, and for her sons, the 9-year-old afraid to go upstairs downstairs, first Let Grow Project, he made the family French toast, which is pretty darn basic, right? But it does involve, cracking eggs and making real food, not just a theoretical thing that helps the family. And so he's helping the family, and he was using heat, right? So he had to go to the stove and had to turn it on, and there was actual flames. Although there won't be, I guess, in 10 years when everything becomes electric. Anyways, having done that without realizing it, he started going upstairs and downstairs by himself. And then the professor who's doing the study, he said that this one 10-year-old girl who had been very terrified of going upstairs or downstairs, one of the things she wanted to do was go to the bus stop by herself. And so the parents let her. So it requires a little, it requires discomfort on your part, parents, which I recognize is terrible. I hate feeling discomfort or worried too, and I am a worried parent, oddly enough. Um, but anyway, so she got to the bus stop by herself, and she was so proud that night, without recognizing that she was doing something new, she slept in her own bed for the first time in 10 years.
wow.
So it's it's not magic, but it is evolution. I mean, I think we are wired to want to be part of the world and to um, exist in it and succeed in it. And until kids do something on their own, um, they don't know that they're going to be okay, and you don't know that they're going to be okay, which is why I always recommend the Let Grow Project for a school, because the school has made it a homework assignment. So the parents feel they have no choice. And
Mhm.
only that is sometimes what pushes parents far enough to like say, okay, normally I would walk you, but I've just heard so many stories. I did a television show. If you look on like a reality show, it's probably about 10 years old now. But if you go to YouTube and you look up World's Worst Mom was the name of the show, because that's me. And the company that bought the rights to it is called Real Families, REAL Families. And they the show sent me to families that were beyond overprotective. I mean, like a mom who fed her 10-year-old in his mouth with a
Wow.
spoon, right? A mom who let her 8-year-old get a skateboard, but he could only stand on it on the grass, right? No movement. I guess it's a skateboard. And then another mom who took her 10-year-old girl into the ladies' room when the girl had to go to the bathroom, but then stood in the stall with her. It's like, that's, I found these parents incredible. But of the 13 families, 12 of them changed so fast. Like, I gave them each 4 different things. One day they had to let their kid, play outside, and one day walk to
Yep.
the mall, and one day climb a tree or whatever. And they all except the horrible New Jersey family, don't say that, cut that out, all except one family who happened to be in New Jersey, um, changed to the point where they couldn't remember why they had been so scared. And it's like, one of the moms said, now I have 2 birthdays because this is my new birthday, because suddenly she was a new person. And that's why I'm sort of sickened that I have to, like, how come 15 years on I still have to tell people about this? It's like, if I'd figured out that all you have to do is eat limes and your whole crew on the pirate ship will not die of scurvy, that should be enough. Look at this.
Yep.
These guys are dead, and these guys are eating limes, and they're busy pillaging. So all you need to do to pillage is eat a lime. How come it takes 15 years of me doing, podcasts and talking about this for something that works, that's free, that's
Yep.
easy and fast? So all I can say to any of your listeners is, get that school of yours. Tell your teacher, tell your principal, tell your, superintendent, I heard about this thing. It's free. It's fast. It doesn't take class time. Could we just try it? I think it's probably going to be good. And then do it.
Yeah. Well, we're going to push that out there for you. This is,
Great.
Lenore, thank you for everything you're doing. We're in this together, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trying
Mm-hmm.
to get kids and families healthier, moving their bodies and expanding their minds and getting them happier.
Mm-hmm.
So, other than watching the great documentary Chasing Childhood that you were featured in, how can people learn more about all the great work that you're doing?
Oh, all the great work. Well, obviously, I'm the president of Let Grow. So I would say go to letgrow.org. We just updated our site, and there's stuff for schools, there's stuff for parents, there's books that we think that parents might like to read. There's a lot of little videos sprinkled throughout. You can click on crime statistics and see the actual graphs that show crime going up to the 93s and then down again. I think it's this kind of exciting and yet reassuring site to check out. And then on Twitter, I'm active on Twitter, not on Instagram. It's always letgrow.org. And, I wrote the book Free Range Kids. John wrote the book The Coddling of the American Mind. And Peter Gray wrote a book I love, I'd say more than both of our books, which is called Free to Learn, about how kids learn when they're active and engaged and excited. And it's really hard to get them to learn anything when they're bored and sullen and just sitting there.
That's a great ending, Lenore. Thank you so much for today. We will be in touch. Okay. I would love to have you back on.
That sounds great. Okay, Josh, go get it in those schools, those 75 schools. That sounded very good to me.
Yeah, we will talk. We'll talk down the road here. I'll send you some information and we can talk.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you
All right.
so much.
Thanks, Lenore.